All right. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the first exciting episode of The Legend of the Three Kingdoms. This is my brand new custom D&D game. It's set in the same universe as my other custom campaign, but it's on a completely separate continent. It's dealing with completely separate people. It may or may not even be set in a completely different time. All we know, all the players know as of right now, is the little bit of information I gave them about the world itself and the information that they created. So I hope everyone. I hope everyone watching enjoys this. If you miss any portion of it, I will be uploading all these to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/TrainerJody. I am also, if you have not heard the news from YouTube, YouTube is narrowing their field for what qualifies as partnership, which not only gives you access to things like custom thumbnails and things like that, but it lets you monetize your videos and other things as well. You get found easier. You show up in searches easier, stuff like that. So I am currently fighting very, very hard to keep my YouTube channel. In order to do that, I need people to watch my videos. I need a total of 4,000 hours of view time over the past 12 months. And I need subscribers. I need a little under 750 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please head over there right now. Again, youtube.com/TrainerJody. Click the subscribe button. Watch a couple episodes of this or of the Tyranny of Dragons campaign that we just ended with these same people here, or the Kingdom of the Kale Isles, my other custom campaign, or anything else on there. I'm putting out content almost daily right now. To try and give people a reason to support me and help me do this. So with that out of the way, let me introduce you to the world of the continent of Triregnum, also known as the Three Kingdoms. The continent of Triregnum is one of the most completely settled continents in the world of Portalia, which is the overall planet that all this stuff is based on. Kind of like Matt Mercer's Exandria. Mine is called Portalia. Most people, including the residents of Triregnum, refer to the whole continent as the Three Kingdoms due to how long the kingdoms of Sanguinius, Valakovia, and Fenrish have coexisted on the continent. While border skirmishes aren't unheard of and wars have broken out a few times over the millennia, for the most part, the Three Kingdoms have maintained cordial, if not a little cold, diplomatic relations between each other. Underneath this illusion of peace, however, is a fairly extensive Cold War, with espionage and sabotage happening often on all sides, while all sides simultaneously denying such acts occur. The leaders of the respective kingdoms rarely, if ever, feel the direct effect of these acts, as those most often hurt by them are the general populace and the lower classes. So these Cold Wars have continued for centuries, never spoken about, but always there. The world that these six characters are entering into is one of, again, relative peace, or at least the appearance of peace, marred by random mistakes, as they will be called, or other things like that that cause one country to have slight superiority over another for a short period of time. To give you a little bit of background on the three countries themselves, Sanguinius is a country that is ruled by what's called the Blood Council, which is a group of 13 vampires, each the head of their respective house, and they rule their entire country through immense power and magic specifically. Residents of Sanguinius have to pay two different kinds of tax in order to live under the protection of the vampires. There is the regular monetary tax that they have to pay on everything that they make. And then there is also what's called the blood tax, which they have to actually bleed themselves and donate blood to their vampire overlords in order to sustain them. Missing out on back taxes of the monetary tax means you might lose your house. Missing out on the blood tax or trying to cheat your way out of paying the blood tax could mean that they take you or other members of your family and basically just drain them dry to collect back taxes. So that is one of the countries. The next country, Fenrish, is actually ruled by a meritocracy type system, or I think there's actually a word I found out. Craterocracy is the word I found, where it's basically the strongest warrior in the country is the person that rules the country. He's called the war chief, and the way that they decide this is when the previous war chief dies, either they name the next war chief, or more often there is a large battle royale in the capital city that the last person left living becomes the war chief, and they choose a group of 3 to 5 companions that help them rule. And the war chief is expected to be on the front line of any battle that happens. They're expected to regularly be traveling around, going to the various arenas of Fenrish with their companions, and they're very much a very active ruling class. The final country in the Three Kingdoms is called Valakovia. It is ruled by a monarchy. The current monarch is King Matthias IV, and they believe that the monarchy, the current king or queen, depending on who is in power at that particular time, is ordained by the gods themselves, and so they are a very divinely oriented country. Their major cities are basically surround the major temples in Valakovia, and they also are a very technologically minded country, where steampunk tends to kind of describe them well. They're also the only country that has developed firearms, though they're still relatively primitive compared to what we consider firearms. That has been one of the things that has kept their balance of power in line when compared to the awesome magical power of Sanguinius and the just kind of pure primal power that Fenrish controls. So these are the 3 countries that rule this entire continent. And recently, there have been some interesting things that have been happening. There are adventures in every country, and inter-country trade and things like that is very, very common. While each country has their own way of defending their borders, Sanguinius with magic, Valakovia with technology and traps and things like that, and then Fenrish just with raw power and fury. Traveling between the countries is actually fairly common for trade. Immigration and emigration is not uncommon, but there is a high sense of patriotism with all of them. Most recently, though, there have been a string of assassinations that have happened. There's been mercenary groups that have been killed off for inexplicable reasons. There have been diplomats that have been murdered and in mysterious circumstances. And so there's this period of civil unrest that is starting to rise up, and the Cold War that has been going on, again, for centuries, is starting to kind of bubble up a little bit. And the countries themselves are starting to move more towards skirmishes and all-out warfare, depending on what happens. One of the people that inhabits this country is a gentleman that simply goes by the name of the Commander. He, over a year ago, was able to protect a village in Sanguinius from an overwhelming attack of giant spiders, and his just natural leadership abilities have really almost erased his previous name, and now he is simply known as the Commander, and the name the Commander is known all over the Three Kingdoms as this almost mythical figure. Commander, why don't you describe your character for us?
He's about average height, 5'10", 5'11", around there. Stark white hair, and similar beard, but there's bits of his old hair color that still comes through, like a red hair. Has a long, think, what was the movie? Guardians of the Galaxy, the long trench coat that Star-Lord wore, the leather trench coat, just simple leather armor underneath that. He has a longbow and a gun. His gun is still somewhat strapped to his waist, but rather well hidden underneath the armor and coat.
So yeah, he has a mysterious device, even to Valakovians, if they were to see it, with firearms themselves being Valakovian design. This would be kind of an interesting looking device. This is definitely not your stock model firearm that he carries. And again, while the legend of him that has spread has included this tales of this weapon, as legends tend to become more fantastical every time they are told, the tales of the weapon itself have changed enough that no one is quite sure exactly what it is he keeps hidden strapped to his hip, but they know as soon as it comes off his hip, bad things are about to happen. So, Commander, you recently were kind of traveling around the border between Sanguinius and Valakovia for your own reasons that you hadn't really described to anyone around you. And while you were there, you came across an altercation in one of the smaller towns that you had stopped in for supplies. There was a woman who was brandishing this cast iron skillet like a battle axe, and these three men that were there basically harassing her. And you stepped in and let's say convinced the men that it might be a better idea if they didn't harass this specific young woman. And after everything was said and done, the woman came up to you and asked for your help. She had mentioned that she lived in a small town northwest of where you were, and that a noble from the House Merovingian, the city around the House Merovingian, human noble, had laid claim to her town and basically tried to evict everyone. And the few people that had tried to form a resistance and fought against it had been killed. She didn't really describe how they'd been killed, but they were all dead. And so she went, collected as much money as she physically could, and went looking for someone, anyone, who would come and help them defend their town against this noble and the small army he controlled with the influence that he held. And you again, because of other plans that you have, decided to go with her. And over the next few days, as you were traveling towards her, towards this town, which you later found out is a little town called Dormay, you came to realize that this was not something that you were going to be able to do alone, or even something that you were going to be able to do with the help of the remaining townspeople. They simply were not trained enough. There was not enough number for them to be able to really set up a defense. So as you've been going, you've been stopping in various towns and looking for rumors of other people that are a little bit more well-known, people that might have legends of their own that you think might be able to help. And you've come across a couple names that have sounded interesting to you. And now I have to remember. You have heard stories of an almost mythical creature that has hunted the wilds in Fenrish for over a year. And the stories that come out of Fenrish and the towns in Sanguinius that border Fenrish is this incredibly evil creature that lures away young women, that drains people of their life energy, that can hypnotize people, that controls darkness, and just this really evil, malevolent creature. And recently there have been whispers of this creature having been seen near, around the area and within a few days' journey of the town of Dormay. And this creature is called the Outcast. You've also heard stories of a really well-known adventurer who at one point belonged to a mercenary group called the Vagrant Wolves that was very well known for doing whatever needed to be done. They helped collect blood taxes. They removed kobold dens and destroyed lichens, things like that. Whatever was necessary for them. They were generally thought of a good group, but most of them died, and one of their member became a rather proficient adventurer on her own and developed the title of the Lone Wolf. And you've heard whispers that the Lone Wolf has been seen, again, around this particular area as well. And then the final name that you've heard recently is about this warrior, this woman who tends to keep to herself almost exclusively. She never stays in the same place for more than a few hours to a day maximum, and picks up the odd job here and there using some pretty interesting abilities. And she's known as the Drifter. So while you are traveling, is there one of these three characters that, or these three names that you think, you know what, I want to check out this one. I want to see if I can find something about this.
I want to find out the Drifter.
Okay. So heading to various towns and things like that, you start asking around about the Drifter. And I would like you to make, I'll let you choose persuasion or intimidation, trying to find out some information about this Drifter.
Who's persuasion? That's a 13.
13. Okay. So the first town that you go to, you go around, you try finding some information. You get a couple stories about the Drifter. You get a rough physical description, but it's not really much more than you already knew. She's female. She does have a sword, and some people have claimed that the sword every so often will glow with an unholy light as she fights. But beyond that, you weren't able to get too much from the first town. By the time you got to the second town, somebody in a bar mentioned to you. Oh, the Drifter. Yes. I seem to remember she was here about 3 days ago. Said she was looking for something. She didn't really tend to talk to anyone, just picked up some supplies and left.
Did she mention anything about where she was going?
She didn't really. The few times I attempted to talk to her, she tended to not really talk to much of anyone. She rebuffed me rather quickly, to be honest. But she was headed generally in a northwestern direction, and she kept saying that something was wrong. She kept repeating that, but I couldn't tell you what that means. To be honest, she seemed a little daft to me.
Okay. Was she carrying anything peculiar in particular?
Not that I saw, though that silver sword on her side seemed to be... She seemed to be quite attached to it.
Okay.
Now, you know, silvered weapons in general are not uncommon, with the threat of lycanthropy so rampant in Fenrish. This close to the border, a lot of people have at least one silvered weapon available to them, just in case werewolves or were-rats show up and they have to be fought off. So knowing that information, what do you want to do? You're still a few days out from Dormay, so.
And that's still in a northwest direction, correct?
Yeah, you're heading roughly. It's more west than it is north at this point, but.
Okay. I'll keep heading towards Dormay, I guess.
Okay. And are you specifically looking for? Are you starting to look for signs or anything of this particular person, or are you just heading to Dormay first?
I'll always keep out for signs of any of not only the Drifter but any of the three that was described to me.
So, I would like you to roll me a survival check.
Okay. Is that 13?
13. Okay. So, as you're traveling, you do pick up some tracks. They're relatively difficult to find. It looks like whoever made these tracks was doing their best to not be seen. But, as you know, there are certain situations where you simply, without some sort of magical aid, you can't help but leave some sort of mark. So you are able to find a trail and are able to start following it.
Okay.
I'm going to switch over now to Liliane. Liliane, go ahead and describe your character.
About 5'3", blonde, late teens, early 20s, leather armor, but leather armor over a white tunic. She kind of like the winter. My sword is flat on my back.
All right. So you've been traveling and have this kind of pull that you've been feeling that's leading you towards what you're now starting to realize after visiting a few cities and things like that is the town of Dormay. and you've been kind of pulled in that direction. And that's really kind of focused your has been the entirety of your focus for the last few days until today. You've noticed on the horizon, it looks like you might be being followed. They're far enough out that there's a good chance that they haven't seen you physically, but you're seeing telltale signs of someone traveling in the exact same direction, generally looking like they're following the very tiny amount of a trail that you have left that you haven't been able to keep hidden. So knowing this information, you know you're still a couple days outside of Dorme. So knowing this information, what would you like to do?
Am I traveling by horse or by foot?
Horses are a bit expensive and don't tend to last long in Fenrish, which is where you just came from. So more likely than not, you're traveling on foot, which is why it's taking you so long to get there. On horseback, you probably could have cut the time in half. But generally, if you're going to travel with pack animals and stuff like that, you need to be part of a caravan or something. Otherwise, you're basically just traveling around with a large amount of fresh meat.
So as I get close to the mine, I am trying to create like a secondary trail to make it work,
Okay.
but I'm avoiding people going into the town.
Okay. Go ahead and make me a survival check.
Let's see, my survival is 10.
All right. So, Commander, as you're going, you're starting to notice that the trail itself is starting to dry up. You get the idea that you might, the particular person that you're following right now might have figured out that they're being followed. And I would like you to make an insight check for me.
21.
All right, you find a trail. You suddenly notice that the trail itself gets much easier to follow, and that sets off bells in your head. You've done tracking before. You've never been particularly good at it, but you understand the basics of it from, the training that you have had and just your understanding of how to command people in general. And the fact that this trail has now become much, much easier to follow immediately gives you pause. And you are able to find another trail significantly more difficult to see, going in a different direction.
Which way is that second one going?
They're both heading, again, roughly to, now you're going almost directly west. Towards Dorme. They're both going generally in that direction. It's just one is taking a very different route than the other one. So you can choose to follow either one.
Looking around, do I see anyone ahead of me?
Make me a perception check.
That would be a no, because I rolled a natural 2, so no, I don't see anything.
So you don't see anything around. The only thing you know is, like I said, you found the trail was getting more and more difficult to follow, and then now it's not. You see a very, very obvious trail, and then one that's slightly less obvious or significantly less obvious, that actually took you a little bit of time to actually find.
Um,
And you know an ambush setup when you see one.
yeah. Uh, I kind of want to go towards on the left because you said they're going similar direction, but they're a little farther away from each other.
Yeah, they
Okay.
the easy one looks like it's heading north,
Okay.
where the one that you didn't see is actually technically going a little bit south. But they're both, northwest, southwest. They're both still heading in a generally westerly direction. So you think they would both get you to Dormay. It's just, you get the idea that one of these, the person you're tracking wants you to follow, and one of them they do not want you to follow.
Okay. I want to walk on toward along the left side of the more hidden tracks.
Okay. Do you want to be sneaky about it, or are you just going to continue?
Yeah, I'll be sneaky about it.
All right, go ahead and roll me a stealth check. Lillian, go ahead and roll me a perception check.
Uh,
Commander, what'd you get?
trying to read my writing. Sorry. 19.
19, all right. Lillian?
15.
So after about 3 hours of following this trail and being very, very quiet, you come upon a woman with a... What kind of sword do you have, Lillian?
A long sword.
Longsword. You see a silvered longsword strapped to this woman's back. You can see the handle itself is wrapped in leather and relatively worn. The blade itself, while it looks very sharp, has obviously seen quite a bit of battle. And you've been able to get within about 150, 200 feet of her, and she hasn't noticed you as of yet. Lillian, you setting up the false trail and everything did make you lose a little bit of time, and the whomever it is that's been tracking you was able to get a little bit closer. But over the last hour or so here, you've actually lost them. So you think your false trail might have been successful because you don't see them anymore. So between the two of you, what do you guys want to do?
I can see her, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're in
I
a
say,
wooded area, but you have clear line of sight to her. It's not like heavily wooded or anything.
Okay. I'll just stand where I'm at just to see what happens.
Okay.
I head towards the city limit and Dubai.
Okay.
Whatever direction that would be.
So, Commander, you watch as Lillian, who's been you've been able to see has been kind of covering her tracks pretty well, kind of looks around, doesn't seem to notice anybody, and now makes a renewed kind of effort to head towards Dormay at kind of a forced march pace. Really trying to pick up some speed after losing a little bit of it.
Okay. I'll follow, just carefully.
Okay. So as you guys get close to Dormay, there's one more city that our small little village that you're heading past. That both of you guys will either have to at least go in for some supplies before heading out again and before getting to Dormay. And as you both arrive there, Lillian, you're still not aware that you're being followed anymore. And Commander, you do kind of watch Lillian as she enters the town. What do you guys want to do once you get into the town?
Let's see.
Well, the first thing I do is look around and double check that there is no one. I will know if no one.
Okay. In a town setting, it's a little bit more difficult to tell when you're being followed, just because there's a lot more people there.
Yeah.
So go ahead and make me a perception check with disadvantage, and Commander, go ahead and make me just a straight up stealth check.
That's 19 again.
15 again.
All right, you feel safe. You know, as safe as you can be. Again, you're not particularly fond of being anywhere for too long.
And then I head to the local, into the local tavern.
Okay.
Wherever I feel the most people would
Yep.
be.
There's a kind of hole in the wall tavern that looks like the kind of place where people don't look at you too closely.
Yeah.
You don't think the food's going to be very good there, but you're relatively certain you can get some decently cheap iron rations, you know, enough to make it to Dorme.
Yeah.
So, Commander, you notice Liliane head into this tavern.
Okay.
What do you
I
want
wait
to do?
about 20 or so minutes just to not look obvious before I walk into the same tavern.
Okay. As you are waiting, you hear commotion. You see some members of what you're assuming is the city guard running around and saying a few words that you don't technically understand the words themselves because they're in a language that you don't speak. You're relatively certain what they mean, though. Apparently, something has happened that has really set off these guards, and you hear one of them. You see one of them spit on the ground and go, "Curse that blooded vigilante! I'm gonna get her!" And they go running off. And shortly after you see that, Vala, go ahead and describe your character for us.
Me?
Yes.
So I am a young female half-elf of Drow descent. I have raven black hair, which is brushed over to the side with an undercut. Lighter gray skin with a purplish, with a light purple undertone, and pale blue eyes. I'm dressed in all black, with dark leathers, a black overcoat or traveling cloak. I have a rapier on my waist and a black lute slung across my shoulders.
All right. So you see, after these guards go running off, you see this shorter half-elven young woman, obviously of Drow and human, I'm assuming, descent?
Correct.
Yeah. Coming out, smiling, looking rather smugly at herself as she's just kind of walking away from them. And you see her jingling a few coins and tossing them into her pocket. And you can see there's a few villagers that they kind of watched for the guards to leave. And then as soon as they did, they all kind of gave this half-elf a little bit of a smile, and one of them tossed a coin in her direction. They seemed relatively happy with her, and she seems very, very happy of herself. And from the way that she carries herself and the fact that it's obvious that this is the person the guards were after, the fact that not only was she able to ditch these guards, but she did it so effortlessly, kind of points to the fact that she probably is a person with some unusual skill sets, let's say. Valaraven, you would have noticed the commander kind of standing there for the past like 10, 15 minutes, watching, kind of casing the tavern. But nothing about him kind of screamed like he was up to no good or anything like that. He was just very obviously watching this tavern. So knowing that information between the two of you, what do you guys want to do?
How far away is she from me?
On the other side of a square, so maybe 100 feet.
Okay. And she's just keeps she's kept walking away, or what's she doing right now?
I'll.
I'm
You
I'm
do.
walking over to the tavern.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You do know that she did see you,
Okay.
but you're not really trying to hide right now. Like you're leaning beside a building. So.
Yeah. So I thought.
So Valraven, you're heading into the tavern. As you come into the tavern, you're immediately hit with a wave of smoke. The tavern itself is incredibly poorly lit. No one turns to look at you when you enter. I have music and everything. Well, I went and made all these playlists and stuff. I'm going to use them.
Oh, there we go.
I'm going to turn that down just a little bit because it's a little bit loud. So yeah, you enter this tavern, and again, no one's looking at you. You've been in taverns like this before, where this is where some of the seedier people tend to congregate, and so anonymity is your friend. Anything specific you want to do in the tavern now that you've entered it?
I am just going to get an ale
Okay.
and find a corner where I can kind of get a good view of the room and just people watch for a little while.
Okay. So you get nail without too much difficulty. It costs you a single copper piece, meaning it's the finest of ale. And yeah, you're able to kind of set up in a corner. Go ahead and roll me an insight check. As you're doing that, Commander, you enter the tavern. Again, very similar experience. You're hit with a wall of smoke. No one looks at you. They actively avoid eye contact as you enter in. And yeah, it's a seedy old tavern.
All right.
19.
Okay.
Oh.
I'll come back to you in just a second, Vala. Commander, what do you want to do?
I want to go to the bartender. I want to order 2 shots of liquor or fire whiskey, whatever you want to call it,
Okay.
and walk over to the drow.
The half elf, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Sorry.
So Valraven, you're sitting there and you're looking past, and you've been doing this long enough that you can tell. Like you're like, oh, those people are doing a drug deal. Oh, those people, those are actually nobles that are trying to do some off the books trading. Oh, those are murderers. Oh, that's the gang that controls this part of the town. And as you're sitting there just kind of looking around, you notice 2 people that, to you, stick out like a sore thumb. But to most people wouldn't, simply because, again, this bar is meant for people to not care about the other denizens. One of them is this kind of larger human, taller than you are, wearing this kind of heavy, like, I'm assuming is it same color?
Yeah, it's
Star
kind of
Wars?
a
That
more-
dark reddish, like maroonish. Okay.
Yeah.
So you see him this dark red, heavy leather coat, heavy enough that it probably would stop, would provide some resistance to a blade being passed through it, and you can see underneath it some leather armor that would definitely give blades and other sharp objects some difficulty. And so you see him go over, get some liquor, stuff that's much more expensive than what you got. Your liquors are going to cost you 2 silver, by the way, Commander.
Okay.
And then you also see this woman with a long sword strapped to her back, which is slightly different. Generally, if you're going to be using a back holster, it's for a, like a hand and a half or 2-handed sword or something like that. But it's not uncommon to see a long sword strung across the back. It's silvered. It's definitely weathered. And she goes directly to the end of the bar, has a conversation with one of the barkeeps there, and looks just to be waiting around for something to come to her, because it looks like she ordered a drink, but she must have ordered something else as well, because the barkeep has gone into the back, which is where you know the food would come from.
Right.
And as you observe that, you see this tall human coming towards you with a shot in each hand. And he comes down and he places the shots on the table, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
Take it away, Commander.
I sit down. I guess he gets like a chair straight across.
Sure.
Okay. I sit down in front. One thing I forgot on my character's description is that the eye color is of a pale sky blue, but around the actual iris itself, it's a more of a vibrant purple color. That's that kind of spiders out to the rest of the pupil or the iris.
And Valeraven, you would have, with an insight of 19, as he got closer, you would have been drawn to his eyes a little bit, because they are very, very unique and very different from the other eyes that you're used to seeing. A lot of, at least in this particular country, a lot of blood elves, which is the colloquial term for dark elves here, have red hues to their eyes and stuff like that. So this very much looks like an interesting, unique person, and you've never quite seen that eye coloration before. So back to you, Commander.
So I guess you scored pretty well tonight.
Well, I think I did all right for myself. My, those are very interesting eyes you have.
So I'm told. Any interest in using those skills to more larger scale effect?
Larger scale. I don't know. What did you have in mind? Although I warn you, if you have anything illegal, I'm not that kind of go.
Well, I'm heading toward a town called Dormay. It's not exactly being paid. It's not worth it, but there's something there, somebody there that's taking over the town from what I hear. So it seems to more of how would you put it?
Altruistic might be the word you're looking for.
Sure. Altruistic type of endeavor.
When you say take over the town, do you mean just ousting the nobility there, or?
As in ousting everyone. Somehow he's forged documents and just been able to circumvent everybody.
Well, that doesn't sound quite right.
You do. You are familiar enough with the area of Vala that you would know Dormay is not a large enough town to have a nobility in it. It's kind of a backwater area, a lot of farmers. So
they're getting rid of the farmers, you say, and kicking everyone out of town.
By the looks of it, that's what
I reach
is
over.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was gonna say I reach over, grab one of the fire whiskey, slam it back, and slam the shot down on the table and say, "All right then, when do we leave?"
Wow, that much easier than I thought I was going to. Is the woman still with me? Is she been following me this whole time, or did she take off ahead of me? Or
when she gave you directions to where it was, when you started tracking Lilian, you felt that due to the rumors surrounding the person that you were tracking, it wasn't the greatest idea for her to continue with you. She did assure you that she could get back to Dorme safely. So she hasn't been with you for a day or so.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Her name was Abigail, by the way.
You know, over there by the end of the bar, that
Yes.
does that look like somebody? I've heard rumors someone called the Drifter.
But she
Someone
definitely
who
doesn't
just-
look like she belongs here.
Have you been here long? Have you seen her here before?
I've not seen her here before, but to be honest, you two stick out like sore thumbs.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's the hair.
Trust me, if you belonged in a bar like this, I probably wouldn't be going with you. Not as easily, anyways.
Fair point.
While this is all happening, Lillian, go ahead and roll me an insight check.
16.
So that's enough. You do get this strange feeling that you're being watched. As you're waiting for your iron rations and things like that, and you notice there is a couple at one of the corner booths that is staring at you relatively intently. They've made reference to you. One of them pointed in your general direction. One of them is a half-elf with some drow descent to her, and the other one is a human with white hair that doesn't look anywhere near old enough to have had their hair naturally go white.
I take my drink and put the try to work my trying to find a table and working and meet someone that's trying to blend it but
All right.
I can.
Make a performance check for me.
$14.
All right. So looking around, you start doing what you can. You do see two tables with people that, just from being familiar with people in general and knowing which ones you should avoid, you see two tables that you think if you sat down and started up a conversation with the people there, they wouldn't immediately kill you. Whereas a lot of the other places, if you interrupt their business, there's a very good chance you're going to have to use that sword. So if you'd like, you can try and join one of those tables and try and make it look like you're there to talk with them, or you can continue to wait at the bar.
Yeah, I try to join one of them.
Okay. So there's a table with a scrawny wood elven gentleman speaking with his human companion. And as you sit down, they both look at you rather interestingly. They look over your shoulder to see a pair of eyes, or two pairs of eyes actually, kind of follow you over here. And one of them immediately, you see this look of recognition and goes, looks like you are looking for an excuse. If you just happened to drop 5 silver pieces on the table, I think I might remember what good friends we are.
But yeah, I believe her. been doing it for a really long time, and I roll seven
Okay.
now.
And you see his hands move so deftly that even watching them, you can't really tell where the coins went. And he claps you on the back and he's like, "It has been so long since I have seen you. Why, it must have been all the way in probably Valois was the last time we were together. It is just absolutely wonderful that you were able to meet us here. Now, the reason I asked you to meet us here is my daughter is getting married, and I knew that you would want to be at the wedding.
Oh
This
yeah, yeah, who is the lucky fellow?
Well, it's actually this lovely gentleman. This is my well, soon to be in-law. This is the father of the groom. His name is Corden. And the human sitting there goes, "Yeah, my name is Corden, and my son is obviously getting married because I obviously have a son, and he's much better looking than I am because he's getting married to stop talking. You're going to hurt yourself. Anyway, yes, it's Corden's son, Philippe. Oh, it's such just wonderful that this is
When
going on.
I can buy a mountain drink for to lucky fathers.
Yes, that sounds definitely what my good
Yeah.
friend would do. We should probably have the drink to your name, though. I wouldn't want it to be in my name.
Of course.
Silvis is such a boring name. Your name, obviously, much more thing. So, I'll let you make the toast, and relatively quickly, some cheap ale is brought over, and it costs you another 3 copper pieces because you have the best.
Yeah.
And so he just kind of raises his glass and waits for you to say something.
To to the father of Philip and Philip and Mary.
Yes, Philip and Mary, wonderful! And you guys clink glasses, and he pulls you in a little bit closer to make it look like you guys are talking, details and things like that.
Yeah.
Commander and Vala, you guys both notice this, and it's a rather impressive performance. Vala, were it not for the fact that you kind of pegged her earlier, you would have had no problem believing that you just misinterpreted what it was. But again, Commander, you've kind of been following her for a little bit of time, but you do get the idea that she now knows that you guys are watching her because she's making a pretty big deal to try and look as innocuous as possible. So, what would you two like to do?
There are barmaids walking around.
Yep.
Okay. I want to flag one down and have a shot of whiskey sent over to individual.
So as the barmaid comes over, "That'll cost you a silver if you want me to deliver it. It's another 5 copper."
5 copper for delivery.
Well, if you want a delivery with a smile, then yes. If you don't care how it gets over there, or if it gets over there, maybe I won't.
Interesting. Fine. I'll give her 5 copper as well.
Okay. So she goes over, she gets a shot. Liliana, as you guys are talking, a shot is brought over and placed in front of you. He goes, a creeper over there want me to give you this. If you'd like, I can have one of the larger gents that are regulars here walk you out so you don't have to deal with him. Or we could just rough him up for you if you'd like.
No, alright. I can do it myself, and I got more influence on my back.
All right. If that's the way you want to play it, I'm just saying he's a bit of a creeper. I've been watching you since you came in.
Yeah, he's been, I think he's been following me when I see me on town or something like that. I don't know, I've never seen him before, have you?
He's new to these parts. He's never been in a tavern before. I say just to be on the safe side, you should probably contact the guard about him. If you like, I can have someone go out and get him for you. Then you don't have to worry about it. You stay in a bar. There's lots of people here, and I'll be perfectly honest, not a whole lot of people like to make trouble in this particular establishment. There are a few people here that get rather upset when their business is interrupted, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get that feeling about it. But, so I said that maybe I will, see you and have a call or something. Call in.
Don't you worry, lady. They'll be here under a tenner. Of course, I'm having the hardest time remembering exactly where it is that the guards are right now. Either they're at the jail doing their regular guard shift, or they might actually be at the town centre just looking around for riffraff and stuff. Or they might... Gosh, my memory is so bad right now. I wish I had something to jog my memory.
I give 5 silver.
And again, very quickly, it goes into her bodice, and she's like, right, I remember exactly where they are. They'll be here within 5. And she kind of walks off back into the kitchen, it looks like. Commander and Vala, you guys see, you can't hear the conversation because there's enough kind of background noise in the bar that you can't really eavesdrop from where you are. But you see them talk for a little while, and if either of you two would like to make me perception checks with disadvantage, you can.
Yo, it's common.
14 for me.
Okay.
19 for me.
All right. The 19's good enough to see it, especially with your kind of familiarity with how the other half lives, let's say. You do see some money pass between the two. And she doesn't come back with any drinks or anything. You couldn't tell how much has passed, but you heard the telltale sound of coins hitting each other.
Okay. Can I tell kind of out of the people at the table who Liliane is talking with the most?
Yeah, it seems like the wood elf is the one that she's having the most conversation with. The human sitting at the table looks probably like a couple nails short of a box.
Excellent.
So
like to
he
cast
hasn't been
Charm
talking, like he just looks confused the entire time.
Excellent. I would like to cast Charm Person on him.
What's the spell say for that? I don't think I really need to roll this, but I'm going to just for shits.
It is a wisdom. The
Oh,
DC
yeah.
is 15.
Yeah, he has a super high wisdom score. I can just tell. All right, I gotta move some stuff around here so I can actually roll. All right, let's see what we got. What was the spell save?
15.
Huh. Surprisingly enough, he got a nat 20. Even with his negative wisdom modifier.
Oh gosh.
So you watch,
odds.
Commander, as you're sitting there, you watch Vala start sitting there, and she starts moving her hands a little bit, and she starts to hum this little tune. And as she does, you start to feel the familiar sensation of magic being cast near you, and you see the bald human sitting over at the table with Lilianne, kind of sitting there and lulling himself, and then he kind of shakes his head a little bit. And remind me, if the charm spell fails, do they know that they've been charmed? Because I can't remember.
If it fails the saving throw,
Or they succeed on the saving throw, sorry.
right. It does not say. When the spell ends, the creature knows it was charmed by you.
Okay, so I'm going to
doesn't say
say
anything about a
because of that, he realizes that he was that someone was being charmed, and Lilianne, you watch a familiar sight for you. You've seen people be charmed before. You see his eyes start to glaze over, and then he gets up, and you see him just angry, and he gets up and he's like, "You're trying to warp me mind." And this very angry, kind of large refrigerator-shaped human starts heading directly towards Valaraven and the commander. And he's pulled out from his cloak what looks like, I'm trying to remember the right term. I call them iron knuckles.
Brass knuckles?
Brass knuckles, there we go. It's just it's metal thing that fits over your fingers and gives you a little bit more weight to your punch, if you're not familiar with it. But he's pulled out a set of brass knuckles, and he's, or knuckle duster, that's what I used to call it, and apparently that's also a term for something else completely. But you see he's basically armed himself, and he's coming over, looking like he's getting ready to swing at Valaraven. So, Commander Vala, what do you guys want to do?
I quickly kind of like stand up and say, "Okay, this is going to get real interesting real quick."
I stand up and grab because there's 2 shots. I'll grab the one shot that wasn't taken and hold up in front of myself towards him. It's like, listen, friend, this was all the big misunderstanding. Nothing happened.
Go ahead and
give him the shot.
Make a persuasion check.
Natural 20.
Oh, it doesn't matter what I rolled. He's looking at you, and he gets ready to swing, and then he sees the decent alcohol, best alcohol they're going to have here, in your hand that you're kind of handing him, and he's like, and he looks profoundly like caught between the proverbial rock and a hard place, because he's like, I mean, you can see the wheels of his head turning. Oh, there's alcohol, but then there's a bitch. But then there's alcohol. But then there's the bitch. But then there's alcohol. And you see him slowly take off the brass knuckles and kind of sequester them away in his vest. And he takes the shot, downs it. He goes, "You leave my mind alone, witch." And he storms back. Lilianne, when he gets back, your new friend here goes, "Well, it seems that the people you're trying to hide from are a little bit more interesting than I like to deal with. I believe our transaction is finished. If you would join me." And he and his friend walk away and out of the tavern relatively quickly.
I would, as he's going, I would like to get a really good look at him.
Okay. You get a really good look at it. He glares at you on the way out. You're talking about the guy you tried to charm, right?
No, the other one.
Oh, the other one. Yeah. Make a perception check. He tries to hide his features a little bit more, so that'll require a perception check.
11.
11. Good enough. You get an okay look from him. Again, the human is kind of in the way, so you have to kind of peer around without looking like you're trying to see him. But he's a wood elf, has that kind of olive colored skin that wood elves have, and shorter blonde hair.
Okay.
While that's
I-
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to turn to the commander and say, well, that didn't work as well as I thought. What should we do now?
Well, no, this is
We could just try go talk with her.
yeah. This gave things a little more easier at this point. I'll go up to the bar, order 3 more shots of whiskey.
Okay, another 3 silver.
Okay, and carry them over to the table that she's at.
Okay. As you set the shots of whiskey down, Lilianne, you see this guy whom you assume is the one that's been tracking you for a little while, comes over, sets his whiskey down, and as soon as that happens, you guys hear the door of the tavern kind of burst open, and 2 guards come in with this kind of look on their head, and everything stops now that the guards have kind of shown up. As they come in, they look around, they see Lilianne, and they see the commander kind of standing there. They immediately rush over to the commander and start drawing short swords and pointing them at them, and they go, "You, sir, we've gotten reports that you are harassing private citizens. We will not stand for that. Identify yourself."
My hands are up, like just in the typical hands up fashion, and I say I have not been harassing anyone. I've merely just bought drinks and brought them over here to somebody I would like to talk to.
Well, perhaps she doesn't want to talk to you.
Then she can tell me to walk away. Well, I just walked over here.
Identify yourself.
I'm known as the commander.
And as you say that, another hush kind of falls over the crowd. And they both kind of look at each other. They go, "No, you're not."
Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm not.
And now they look even more confused.
Because
Because they sat there, and you can kind of, again, you can see the wheels in their head turning of, I didn't think that would work. So, who are you, if you're not the commander?
I am the commander.
And now they're actively, like, one of them is
confused to the point they
one
walk
of them
away.
has dropped his short sword now, like, not to the floor, but it's just hanging at his side. He's going, Commander, I don't think there's something funny going on here. He's like, I don't understand. Are you not the commander? We know of you. We've heard of you. You can't be the commander. You're far too young.
No.
I've been around a lot longer than you think.
When I know the name,
You've heard the name. Again, the legend that you've heard is, again, he was able to kind of take command of a town being attacked by giant monsters. The story changes depending on which town you're in. Sometimes it's spiders, bugbears, owl bears, But whatever it was, just his presence there and his kind of commanding ability turned them from kind of just a ragtag group of villagers into a militia instantly, and they were able to defend themselves. So that's kind of the legend that, he just has this innate ability to inspire people and just has such a strong tactical mind that he can always find the best move to make in a combat situation. Or at least that's the legend of the title itself.
When I did a role, it's to
If you don't believe him, you can roll insight to see if you think he's lying. Because again, you know the name and the legend behind it. There's
Yeah.
not a physical description with it.
almost 17.
He seems to be genuine in what he's saying. Like at the very least, it seems like he believes he's the commander. Whether or not that's true, he seems to believe it.
And the guards are all confused.
Yeah, they're just so confused. The other ones, I really think we should be going. There was a, I can't remember who it was, but it was a short one. And she was running around doing mean things. And we still got to find her.
I hold that button. It's a sorry that I believe that been so I have been that here.
And as you say that, they both kind of look at each other, and the one that's talking to the commander seems the most disgruntled as he puts his short suit away. We'll be watching you. Come on, Philip. But Gareth, I mean, this doesn't make sense.
He came back.
I didn't even want to be a guard. I wanted to plant flowers, and my mother said that I was supposed to, because she thought I killed all the plants that tried growing before. And he's just talking to himself as he goes out.
I just wave toodles as they walk out.
So Lillian, you now have the commander standing next to you. Vala, you watched a rather... You heard the name commander, and you kind of get the idea of why he has this title. Like, he had command of that situation. He knew exactly what he needed to say to get the exact result he wanted. So...
I had to resist the urge to pull out my lute and start playing like a military, and draw more attention to myself as I'm trying to hide from the guards as well.
So everyone else goes back to their drinks and their conversation, their illicit conversations.
As everything we do normal, I to the guy in the you went through a lot of trouble for 5 minutes. Now, speak your piece.
You, she looks like the description of what I was told for...
For the most part, you weren't given a great description.
Okay.
But she fits the short description you were given. Again, woman with a sword that was silver.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that she, like even you, without your familiarity of like the kind of more seedier places, can tell that she doesn't quite fit in this bar or even in town. Like she definitely, you could pick her out of this tavern, without knowing anything else. She doesn't fit in here.
Okay.
So.
I put one of the shots in front of her, and you look like a person who can handle themselves in when it comes to a sticky situation.
You can say that.
You ever heard of the town Dorme?
Yeah, I was handed it myself.
Really?
Yeah.
As is I. I was approached by someone who lives there. Apparently, they have a situation they need help with that someone has come into town to and essentially evicted everyone and has asked for help. And I'm looking for people to try and help me evict the evictors.
Interested. What makes you think I might be interested in something like that?
You look at least like somebody who likes a good fight. So, you know, why not go where there's a fight ready?
What do you know about the supposed investors?
Not much. I know that there's a supposed noble with a small army that has these apparently falsified papers that have uh, sub- subverted the papers everyone else knows of, or everyone else has, of land deeds and things like that. And the army has pretty much forced everyone out.
You made a vampire, do you know?
I don't know anything about what kind that was there. I just know that this noble is something.
You were the description you were given from Abigail. It's a human noble, so it's not the vampires, because dealing with vampires is a completely different matter. This is a human noble, and he basically has come to the town with deeds showing that he owns the land that they live on. And none of the farmers or anything like that have deeds or anything like that. They haven't needed them. Most of
Okay.
them, they're third, fourth, fifth generation that have lived and worked these farms. So, and you do know that the initial group of people that tried to resist him were killed. So there's already blood involved in this.
Okay. I tell her all that.
Okay.
Well, this is secret. You've been noble, you will be coming to do something without oh, yeah, So, I mean, I go in there anyway.
Sorry,
So, all that can go with you.
my audio cut out. What did you say?
I mean, I go in there too. I better well go with you and see what's going on.
All right. And I wave to the half elf that I was talking to earlier to come over and sit with us.
I walk over.
Okay. You guys do know that I don't think have Vala. Have you actually introduced yourself to the commander? Because I don't think
Yes.
any of you got. Okay, so you got.
Well, no. We said hello.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
none of you guys have exchanged names or anything, other than the fact that the commander's called the commander because he's just declared it that. But the other two people, you guys don't know each other's names or anything like that as of yet. So this might be a good time to.
When she sits down, I put the one of the other shots in front of her. Well, you know me. What are your names?
Well, I hear some people coming and talking about I prefer the William.
Lillian. All right.
Hello, Lilian. My name is Valaravan Einadelict, but some people call me the Vigilante.
And both Liliane and the commander, you guys, as you hear that name, again, there is a legend connected to it of this. The legend you guys have heard is of this crazy woman touched by. I have to hold, please. I have to remember the name of this deity. You make up your own deity, and you can't remember any of them. You guys have heard stories of this crazy woman touched by the cunning rascal, the goddess of trickery, and she's constantly running afoul of guards and things like that. But wherever she goes, by pure happenstance or luck or whatever, it seems to be that plots are uncovered and people that have been getting away with evil deeds tend to get caught. But everything you've heard about the vigilante is she's absolutely nuts and a terror. So that's the name that, or that's the legend that is attributed to that name that you guys know.
While they're just sitting there open-mouthed, I throw back my whiskey. So when do we hit the road?
What time is it right now?
You would have arrived in the town probably mid-afternoon.
And how much farther is it till?
Dorme is about another day, so either you can rest here and then arrive at Dorme probably close to dusk or shortly after. It's technically slightly further than a day. Or you can leave now and get about half day's journey, camp in the wild, and then make it there probably like around noonish.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Well, knowing the kingdom we're in, I say our best bet is to wait here, and in a somewhat secure environment, versus out and maybe camping. So I say we stay here tonight and then head out early morning.
Fair enough.
Are you okay with that? With your heritage?
Who are you addressing that to, Commander?
Valis.
Oh, I'm fine. There's no worries there.
Okay. So we sleep here, leave at break of dawn.
The particular tavern that you're in is just a tavern, not an inn. So you'll have to go to another place to find lodging. But it's easy enough to find. It costs you guys about 5 copper apiece for a bed. Less if you guys are willing to share.
No.
I got my own.
All right. So you guys are able to rest, make it up, and are able to head out. As you guys are leaving, you're getting to know each other, and you're slowly trying to build a little bit of trust between you guys. You don't notice someone watching you from the shadows. Briar, if you'd like to describe your character for me.
She's short, standing at 5 foot tall, slim, more tiny than she probably should be. She's got long black hair that's in braids and dreads that has random beads and things woven in, and she's wearing all black with a hood over her face. So all you can really see is her grim, smile.
Okay. You have been heading towards Dorme for your own reasons, and you stopped in this town simply because it's the closest place to rest before reaching Dorme, and you, kind of putting your ear to the ground and everything like that, heard of the scuffle that happened in the bar, and have kind of been observing these guys from afar and in the shadows since the three of them got together. And as they've left, you notice that while all three of them came separately, with Vala probably being here the longest, a couple of days at least, they all left together and seemingly on relatively good terms, and they're heading in the exact direction that you are as well. So, knowing this information, what would you like to do?
I'm gonna stick to the shadows, but I'm gonna follow them.
Okay. I'd like you to roll me a stealth check, but because of your particular background, in this particular instance, I'm going to give you advantage on it, just because you have a thing with shadows.
25.
25, okay. Vala, Commander, Lilianne, go ahead and roll me perception checks.
25.
Oh, wow.
Oh snap!
22.
Damn.
22 as well.
Wow, everybody rolled high. Damn. So Vala and Lilianne, you guys don't really notice nothing. Commander, you have a nose for trouble. It's one of the things that's kept you alive as long as you have. You can't really tell why, but you do get that strange feeling that you're being watched. When you look around to try and figure out, as you guys are leaving, when you look around and try and figure out where it is you're being watched from, you get nothing. So you can't be 100% sure if this is just paranoia or if it's that kind of sixth sense you've developed just being in dangerous situations.
As we're walking, I sort of whisper to Vala and Lilianne that essentially that my spidey sense is tingling, that I got a sense that there's kind of a sense of being followed. Just to keep an eye open, walk like normal.
Okay, anything you other two want to do with this new information?
I didn't make a circle in commitment. And I didn't person.
Apparently you guys are popular. So as you guys continue going, Briar, you continue to sulk from the shadows. You do notice the commander. You don't think he's noticed you, but you think he might get an inkling that he's being followed. As you are going, I have to make reference to another document because there's so many of them. Yeah. So, Briar, as you are kind of following behind them in the shadows and things like that, you are so intently focused on them that you don't really realize that you've wandered near another person. Henri, if you would like to describe your character.
Hello, yes. I am a drow covered head to toe in black. Nothing but the color black, just so I, don't stand out. I have a cloak that has a slightly longer cone to cover my face a little bit. And without giving up too much, I'm not really welcomed.
So, Henri, as you're traveling off the beaten path as well as you can, you are surprised when you hear some trees rustling, and you see. What race are you again, Briar? I've forgotten.
I'm a human.
Human. You see a human girl, it looks like. She looks remarkably young and skinny, kind of, jumping between treetops and traveling along the floor. and she wanders within about 60 feet of you and seems to miss you entirely until you notice her, and you're both a little bit surprised by the realization that you're there. So you kind of let out a gasp, and she lets out a gasp, and you both kind of look at each other. Briar, you see this relatively tall male figure that the cowl on their cloak dips so low that you can't even you can't see any features of their face whatsoever. And they're dressed entirely in black, which you're used to seeing people dressed in black. But the cloak that they wear obscures so much more than what you're kind of used to seeing is stuff that helps you to hide. And the stuff that he's wearing is not so much stuff designed to help him to hide as it is things that are designed to help him be as formless as possible. And give away as few physical features as possible. So it actually makes him easier to spot in like a forest or something like that, but much more difficult to give a description of, if that makes sense. So you guys both kind of notice each other about the same time, with Henri noticing Briar first. What would you guys like to do?
I'm just gonna sit there and watch. See what she does first, and then if need be, I'll react.
Okay. So you see Henri kind of, again, without being able to see his face, you can't really judge too much of his intention, but his body language seems to be very calm.
I'm gonna take one last really good look at him and then convince myself that it's a figment of my imagination and the shadows are trying to trick me again. And I'm just gonna like very tentatively keep following, but keeping an eye on the shadow.
So Henri, you look at her through, the lip of your cowl, and your face is hidden almost completely in shadows and darkness because of just the very deep cowl that you wear. And she looks at you directly in the eyes, and you know that she can't actually see your eyes, but she seems to be looking where your eyes should be. And she just slowly starts backing away, and then she'll look over her shoulder again and backs away, and then starts kind of not like running, but heading off in a brisk pace, and constantly looking back and staring at you as she continues to move on. Tending to stick to shadows and things like that. It's obvious that she has some experience in stealth. So, yeah.
Does it look like she's heading the same direction I am?
Yes.
Then I'm just gonna... I'm not even gonna...
Are you still there? You kind of cut off.
Henri?
We'll come back to Henri in just a second. This episode of the Legend of the Three Kingdoms is brought to you by technical difficulties. If ever you want to do something that is cool and amazing using the immense amount of technology available to us, don't count on it working due to technical difficulties. As soon as he comes back, we'll have him finish describing what it was that he was describing to us. But we'll go back to the Commander, Vala, and Liliane. You guys, it takes you, again, the whole day, basically, to make it to Dorme. When you get there, you see a few houses and a large... what looks maybe to be like a town hall or a church or something similar to that, in the center of town, and then a few buildings like a store and a tavern, and then you can see in the distance quite a few different farms and things like that. Obviously, a farming community is formed here, but you don't see a single soul outside as you approach the town. And it is very, very dark at this point. what would you guys like to do? And I'm going to see. I've got like 700 windows open right now. That's not what I want to do. Henri, can you hear us?
A second, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Sorry, something happened.
Yeah, internet just randomly dies and no warning.
Fun, cool. So there's two of you right now.
I see that.
But go ahead. You were you cut off mid sentence as to what you were going to do. So you said you were going to head and you weren't going to really care, and then you died.
I'm just gonna walk behind her, not trying to be stealthy at all, since I'm going in the same direction.
Okay. So as you guys get there, Briar, I'm going to have you roll me another stealth check with advantage.
22.
Okay. Perception checks from the three of you guys.
Natural 20.
Wow.
So that's a 26 total.
Okay. Fala got a 1. Lillian?
23 total.
Okay, and what was it again, Briar, that you got?
22.
22. So Lillian and the commander, you guys both now have noticed that there is a very young looking woman that has been following you. I think I'm going to go with that for right now. And Vala, you are completely perplexed by the fireflies that are out right now. And behind her, you see this, what looks almost like a living shadow heading towards you guys from behind this young woman. What do you guys want to do?
How far away? Is she?
The woman herself is probably about 150, 200 feet away, and then the shadow
Okay.
behind her is another 100 feet-ish.
Okay. I just want to. So I'm walking into town. How many buildings are? Where are the buildings around me right now?
You have the main town hall is probably about 400 feet away from you.
Straight ahead?
And then
Okay.
there's you think there's a tavern, there's a dry goods store kind of thing. Those are all going to be a little bit further, like 700-800 feet away from you.
Okay.
So the closest building is that town hall right now.
I guess we could go for the tavern.
Okay. So, I'm assuming you tell Vala and Lillian, and you guys
Yeah.
go with him.
Yes.
Are you guys
Yeah.
hoofing it or just walking?
Just walking.
Okay.
Just
So you guys head over. Briar, you see that they saw you. You saw that they saw that you saw that they saw. So you see that they saw you, but then they just kind of turned around and started heading towards the tavern building. That you can see that you've reached the edge of the forest at this point, so there's no cover between you and the town anymore. So as soon as you step out, you're going to have nothing to hide behind. And you hear the familiar crunching sound of leaves and twigs underneath as you look back, and that shadowy figure that was only in your head is still there, walking very plainly, very calmly towards the town.
I'm gonna turn to said shadow figure. You know, it's not really cool to follow a woman in the dark in a forest.
Not really following you.
Seems like you are.
I mean, I'm going to the town right there.
I'm gonna step to the side and let him pass.
Okay. Henri.
Just walk on by.
Okay. So again, his big billowing cloak and everything goes right past, and he walks directly ahead of you. You see like a town hall building. The town itself seems deserted. You see a town hall building. You see what appears to be like a tavern or an inn or something, and then what looks to be like a dry good, general good kind of store.
As he
Okay.
walks by, can I get like a closer look at him?
You can attempt to go ahead and make a perception check. Henri, what's your what's it called? Standard passive stealth, I guess.
That would be 13, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I got a 20.
Okay. So as he goes past, you are able to get a better look at him. You notice your drow, correct, Henri?
Yes.
So you do notice the ebony black skin that is indicative of drow or blood elves. And as you're looking and trying to get a glimpse at his face, again, his cowl is pulled down so far that it's very, very difficult. But for a brief instant, you do see a portion of his face, specifically the right side, and you notice around his eye there is some sort of tattoo or something that stands out brightly. But it's such a quick glance that you're not able to see anything other than the fact that he apparently has a face tattoo.
As he walks by, I'm going to say under my breath, bloodsucker. And then just stand there.
Okay. Henri, what's your passive perception?
14.
14. Okay. You probably would have heard her whisper something, but you don't know what it was as he went past.
I'll just assume it's another rumor.
Okay. So, Commander Vala, Liliane, as you guys go in, as you get close, you can hear what kind of sounds like a commotion, but it doesn't sound like dangerous or anything like that. It doesn't sound particularly joyous or anything, but there's definitely people in the tavern that are talking, making a fair amount of noise. As you come in, you see a woman standing there, and Argenta, if you'd like to describe your character to us.
So Argenta is also a half drow. She's half human, half drow. She has gray blue skin. Her eyes are a light brown, and her hair is tied up into a loose bun, silver in color. Probably goes down to the middle of her back if she lets it loose. And she has her coat open, showing like travel worn clothes underneath, and what she wears seems to be more for comfort and function than it is for protection. But you occasionally catch the glimpse of a silver dagger hidden in the coat, and on her back she has a flail, and on a hip she has her hand axe, and she's just generally talking, occasionally winking at a barmaid as she throws some coin to get her drink refilled, and then she turns her glance to you three as you enter.
So, Argenta, you've been in Dormay for a little over half a day. You arrived earlier today, and you've been getting to know the situation. You've talked to Abigail. She arrived about the same time that you did, and you're familiar with the town's plight. And you also heard that the commander was on his way here, and that name again you are familiar with. So you've kind of been waiting around, doing your best to try and keep people's spirits up, because it's kind of what you do when you do get involved with people. You generally prefer to be alone more often than not. And when these three people walk in, you see another half elf, half drow elf, You see a human that kind of fits the description that you were given. And then you see this other... Lillian, you a human? What race are you again?
Yeah, I'm human.
Okay. And you see another a human there with a sword on her back, looking a little bit more rough and tumble. You weren't expecting the other two, but you recognize from Abigail's description the commander. So what would you like to do?
So you see me stand up, and I'm a full 6 feet tall. Um, I start walking over, and I'm just like, well, I was expecting 1, but not 3. I hold my hand out for whoever will shake it. Friends call me Argenta, but most know me as the Lone Wolf.
Commander, that's one of the names that kind of piques your interest because you had heard that person had been around.
I reach my hand out and shake her hand. Lone Wolf, it's nice to meet you.
And you, as I shake his hand.
They do call me the commander.
You see her grin widen, and her eyes like glare at you for a moment. She's just, and her grip intense, and she's just like, "Good. I was hoping you'd be here." Now, your friends. As I turn and glance at the other half drow, and I'm just like, "It's good to see another one here." And instead of shaking your hand, she wraps her arm around you and pulls you close. So, what's your name?
My name is Valaravan Nandalikt. My friends just call me Vala. Yes.
Vala. Nice to meet you. And then I look towards Lillian.
Yeah, you kind of get the feeling that Lillian, not so much a touchy person. Vala didn't give off that vibe.
I did hug her back for the record.
Yeah, okay.
Just so you guys are aware, I believe we have 2 more that may be possibly joining us here momentarily.
And as you say that, the door opens and there is a figure in these incredibly kind of thick, heavy cloak that obscures not just their face, but most of the features of their body itself, almost as if the cloak itself is designed to obscure and prevent identification. As Henri enters in to the place. Henri, before entering the tavern, was there anything that you wanted to do?
No, that was exactly where I was headed.
Okay. So he comes in. Everybody looks at him. He's really hard to miss, despite the fact that you can't really tell anything about this person, other than the fact that relatively well built-ish. The cloak obscures so completely any kind of features that you can't tell what you're looking at here. And then, Briar, were you heading into the tavern as well?
I'm gonna wait a few minutes
Okay.
after he goes in, and then I'm gonna take my hood off and put on my diplomatic face, and then walk in.
Okay. So Henri, you've come in and you see Argenta and the commander standing there, and Vala and Argenta are kind of arm in arm right now, and Lillian is just kind of looking at you. Lillian, your hand naturally has drifted up towards your shoulder, towards your sword. So what do you guys want to do? This new person that up until a few minutes ago you had never seen before has now entered the tavern and is just kind of standing slightly inside the doorway.
I look over and see Lillian going for the sword, and I say, "Don't worry. There's no need for violence just yet."
Yeah.
Keyword, I know.
Let's walk up to the bar and ask for a water.
So he walks past and with a relatively heavy Valachian accent asks the barkeep for some water, and the barkeep, really not knowing what to make of you, kind of goes in the back, comes out with, I guess it could pass for water. It's not quite as clear as you remember water being, but it doesn't look, dangerous or anything.
Right, I'm just gonna sip on that while I not really blatantly make it obvious, but just out of that paranoia that I'm being watched, just kind of keep my guard up.
Okay. So again,
But I
this
hear the
heavily cloaked figure is sitting at the bar now. Still, even when he brushed past you, the most you could tell, just from vocal tone and everything, is he seems to be male. But the cloak is so, almost as if it was designed specifically to hide all of his features. And he's just kind of sitting at the bar. He glances back at you every so often, but you can't even see his face because of how low and how deep the cowl is on his cloak.
How bright is it in this bar?
It's brighter than most taverns, to be perfectly honest. Argenta, you've been here for a couple of hours. You have been having fun, to be blunt. You haven't really let yourself enjoy the company of other people in a while now. And so you've been telling jokes. They lit a couple extra lanterns and things like that so that everyone was having fun. You did, a little, first blood sparring match a little earlier that lasted all of a second and a half. Just again for fun. Like, no, there was a few people that made bets on it. No one betted against you. So it's not like anyone made any money off of it. So this is normally a tavern would be kind of dimly lit. This is relatively bright light.
Okay.
And as this is happening, you hear the door open again, and Commander, you instantly recognize not a face, but a stance, a posture. You are very familiar with how diplomats carry themselves, and just a single glance at this woman, she has that air about her. But she's dressed entirely in black. She has a cloak, but she's thrown the hood back.
Quick question: would I recognize the accent on the drow at the bar?
Yes, you would have instantly known it to be Valachian.
Okay.
The rest of you guys probably would have guessed that they're at the very least that he's not sanguine.
Okay.
But the commander, you know that accent.
Okay.
And Briar, you're familiar with that accent as well. So what do you guys want to do? This new woman has just walked into the bar and is carrying herself very differently from the rest of you guys. Like, the rest of you guys can't really tell what it is, but she's definitely carrying herself differently. And like I said, the commander, you know that walk.
Yeah, as she walks in, I look at her and just say, and the second person to be joining us has just now entered.
You've certainly made interesting company.
Yeah, not necessarily something I'd want, but hey, it happens.
I turn to Lillian and I'm just like, you were interrupted. What was your name?
You have draw, right?
Yeah, I'm half drow.
How hard would you say you are?
The ears are slightly pointed and I have blue-gray skin and silver hair, but my eyes are of human descent, and otherwise I take mostly after human other than those.
So he doesn't have the deep kind of obsidian skin that's traditional of Drow. But his skin is significantly darker than a human. Just much, much lighter than any Drow you would have ever seen.
I am female though,
Oh, her, sorry.
and 6 feet tall.
I remember saying some people call me a drifter, and then I didn't mean it for the thing. So, do I prefer to be a wait, so it won't be over.
Lillian, alright. And then my eyes kind of like, I look over all of you and I kind of nod and I'm just like, call me Argenta. The most will call me the Lone Wolf. Both work. And then I turn, because I'm assuming we're all looking, I like glance between the two that just entered.
Yeah. Again, Henri, the figure in the deceptive cloak does not seem too interested in inundating himself with anyone. He's just at the bar. But the woman that has just come in has made an entrance, let's say.
Mm.
She's definitely made herself noticed. And again, she carries herself very differently than other people in the bar or other people that you've really talked to. Kind of almost, you know, she has very good posture. She almost kind of looks down her nose at you a little bit.
As I walk in, I'm gonna walk to the table where the commander and the other two are sitting. I'm gonna pull a chair over from another table, flip it around, and sit on it backwards and just stare at them.
Very undiplomat-like thing to do.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So she is now shown two very, very different sides of her. You know, first this very in command kind of, you know, countenance, and then this very, very informal thing. And she just sits down near where you guys. They were technically kind of standing in the middle, but you can pull up a chair and sit near where they're standing.
Okay, so
Are we alone? Just us in here in this tavern?
No, there's the tavern itself is relatively full. You probably have another 20, 25 some odd people in the tavern.
I drew a crowd.
Yeah, Argenta's been having fun.
Yeah, so I kind of throw off my leather coat, and it's lined with fur, and I tie it around my waist. And you can see my entire left arm is tattooed to the wrist with tattoos of wolves on the hunt. And I'm just like, why don't you go talk to her, see if she wants to talk?
She's sitting right next to you guys.
Yeah.
Like
I know, but
she's
he's the
5
commander.
feet away.
I wanted to show off.
Yeah, okay.
Before that happens, is there a table that has it's like a round table, maybe with? Is there something like that kind of situation?
Yeah, you notice that as you move towards the table, the people are more than happy to kind of give up their seats and kind of move to other tables to give you guys a place to sit down.
Okay. Before I go sit down, I go to the bar and order 6 shots of whiskey.
The kind of older gentleman at the bar goes, "It's on the house, sir. If you just want to wait there, we'll make sure that you don't get thirsty tonight."
Thank you.
Abigail's told us what you're doing here. And then he goes back to, getting your drinks and everything.
Whenever he does deliver the drinks, I leave one to the individual at the bar
Okay.
and carry the rest to the table we're going to sit at and give 1 shot to everybody.
Okay. So you guys got... This is actually a little bit nicer than the stuff that you guys had in that kind of hole in the wall. More along the lines of I'm trying to think of whiskeys now, like Wild Turkey, I guess.
Ugh.
Not a fan of Wild Turkey? Okay.
No.
Blackjack? Blackjack better for you?
I down it instantly.
I'm not a whiskey drinker, so
Yeah.
I don't. I'm more of a bourbon guy. But this would be top shelf booze.
Okay.
I down it instantly.
I would sit down and everyone has a shot in front of them.
Okay.
I use Mage Hand to send the shot back without getting up.
Okay.
So apparently we all have come here for a reason.
Mm.
There are some
Anybody have
bad
any-
people that need taught a lesson.
Anybody have can I look around just to make sure that it's like people are genuinely having a good time? Nobody's like listening in on us besides the one at the bar.
Everybody's listening in. No one.
Oh,
No one's
well-
trying to be secretive about it.
Well, never mind.
But
then.
there's no malice in anyone here. There's a few people that look a little bit worried, and you've noticed that everyone that was sitting at the bar is there no longer. Once the man in the black cloak sat at the bar, people naturally found other places to sit. It was really weird, especially when the drink he was given moved away from him without him touching it. Like, more people started moving their tables away from him.
I like after I down my shot, I like pat his shoulder and I'm just like, we'll talk more later. I'm already in on your plan. And I move over to the bar and sit down right next to him, blatantly trying to look under his cowl. And I'm just like, it's rude to send a shot back. Somebody paid for.
I don't drink.
Can I try and look under his cloak? I'm not trying to hide that I'm doing it.
I mean, yeah, you can attempt it. Henri, you notice that he starts leaning down and trying to peer into your cloak. The thing with this cloak is it's specifically designed to cast shadows over his face. So even looking down, because of how brightly lit it is, the difference between the shadows that are covering his face and the area that you're in, you would have to like get pretty close and wait for your eyes to adjust to actually make out any features on there.
Okay.
Again,
Do I see her?
yeah, she doesn't make any attempt to hide that she's trying to see underneath your cloak.
I'll just kind of subtly, with my hand, the glass that's on the glass, the hand that's on the glass of water. That's what I meant to say. I'll just point and cast a message and be like, "Careful, you might turn to stone."
So, Argenta, you hear in your head this voice that tells you, "Careful, you might turn to stone." You
And
don't
the-
see Henri's lips move at all.
I can reply though, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and in his head he hears, it's a better fate than the one I've faced before.
I mean, willing to risk petrification. I'm not going to stop you.
Now, Argenta, I would like you to roll a history check for me.
History. 17, and that was a straight roll.
Okay. So, thinking back, you've only heard of one creature, one humanoid creature that could turn people to stone that has been anywhere near here, which is this almost boogeyman-like figure that everyone refers to as the Outcast. And there are all these stories about these incredible supernatural powers. You've heard rumors that, he was a former god that was cast down for being so wicked and despicable and still has a connection to, evil demonic powers and things like that. And, looking into his eyes, if he chooses, he can turn you to stone or charm you and rip your soul directly out of your body. and he kidnaps young women, and they're never heard of again, and just this boogeyman kind of figure. And when this guy makes reference to the Turning the Stone, you instantly make the connection of the outcast to this person, almost as if they're trying to take ownership of the title.
You see the tattoo kind of flare a bit, and her eyes turn a little wild before she calms them again, and she's just like, in Elven, just to see if it'll work. Do I catch, like, onyx skin?
Make a perception check. Henri, make me a stealth check with advantage.
I got a 17.
Natural 20.
You get nothing.
Hmm.
Again, you're actually a little bit impressed by this cloak. You don't sense anything magical about it. It's just tailor-made specifically for this person, and it's made to obscure their features, and it does a hell of a job. You are really surprised at how good it is.
In Elven, then I ask, can you speak this?
I can speak everything. I respond in Elven.
And then I reply, the outcast with, question mark at the end.
I just simply reply, saying that name takes years off your life.
You should join us. Skills could be of use, or at least listen and decide. I get up from the bar and saunter over, grabbing my shield off the bar because I had left it there before, and moving over to the table with the others.
All right, so now, Briar, you've been sitting there with the commander for a little bit. Neither of you have really said anything as you kind of watched Argenta and this cloaked figure speak. Briar, you're getting the idea that this is not a figment of the shadows that your mind made up, because other people can see him.
I'm still not going to say anything, but there's an unease to me whenever I look over at the cloaked figure.
Okay. So the rest of you guys, you're sitting at the table. Briar has yet to say anything to anyone, but she kind of almost bristles a little bit.
She's watching. I speak to her, and just like, you carry yourself as if you have been born from a noble family, and yet you dress as if you've also grown up in the, let's just say, not noble family. Who are you?
I'm from all worlds, if you think about it. But they call me the preacher.
As you hear that name, you do recognize the name from your time in Valakovia. It's a name that's very well known in Valakovia, and it's attributed to this woman who's almost crazy in her belief of the evils of the vampires. Like she would go on for hours upon hours speaking about how evil vampires are and using every single slur she could talk about, and would do everything she could to try and convince everyone that the vampires needed to be killed, overthrown. They're devil spawn, bloodsuckers. Like she's fervent in her belief that vampires are the most evil beings in existence, or at least that is the persona that's kind of linked to this name, the Preacher.
Preacher, huh? For stories of you.
You haven't
For a
heard
while
her.
now.
You haven't heard her being this far into Sanguinius. Mostly because, again, every time she shows up in Sanguinius, she's talking about how much she hates the vampires, and they don't like her, so they tend to send her back.
You're a little far from, let's say, a little far into enemy territory, if the story tells true.
I heard a rumor that there's some fishy things going on in this area. I need to find out what it is.
You're not alone in that sentiment.
No.
Those bloodsuckers have something up their sleeve.
That they do.
Explosives, I hear.
I do not trust the undead.
As you guys are sitting there, suddenly the room seems to stop for a moment as the door bursts open rather violently, and you see the body of a young woman come flying through it. She hits the ground relatively hard, and you hear kind of a gasp go throughout the tavern itself. Commander, your first impulse is to stand up, and you do so without thinking. And as you look down at the woman, you can see the face of Abigail there, with her lip split a little bit and bleeding, her little bit of blood running down her nose. And you can see coming through the door are some very, very rough-looking men. They're wearing dark leathers. You can see some of them have billy clubs, some of them have daggers, a few of them have hand crossbows. They look to be a mixture of humans, a few blood elves, a dwarf or two in there, and they start kind of spreading out around the tavern, and you can see everyone else in the tavern is terrified of them. They're backing up. They're doing what they can to stay away from them. And as they kind of create a perimeter around the door, this very elegantly dressed man comes in. He's obviously of noble birth. He carries himself very, very well. He's wearing, silk clothing and has a gold chain that goes into a waistcoat, you assume, having some sort of like timekeeping device in there, and gold toggles and buttons, and just he exudes wealth. And as he comes in, you see Abigail is just kind of backing away on the floor, kind of trying to wipe the blood away from her lip as she has this look of abject terror. He comes in, he's like, "So, it seems I have some uninvited guests." You, and he looks directly at the commander. You're not from these parts, neither are your friends. Why are you in my town?
Well, passing through, decided to stop for a drink.
Perhaps you should pass through.
Like
Perhaps you should pass through a different town. This one shan't be here much longer. Neither will the residents.
By the looks of you, you don't belong here either.
I belong where I decide I belong, and no filth is going to tell me otherwise. This is my land. These are my acquaintances, and they have no problems whatsoever helping you to learn your place.
Question, how many of them are there, including the noble?
Including the noble, you're seeing about 18, or 19 including the noble. He brought about 18 men with him, and they're armed very well. And you see them, you see a couple of them moving a little bit closer towards you, not like they're looking like they're going to attack you, but just getting in more advantageous positions. And the rest of them, excuse me, the rest of them are moving around and kind of positioning themselves so that if something does start, they can take hostages. Like it's to you, it's obvious as if they had signs saying, "We're going to take hostages now."
Okay.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Do I recognize this person at all? If I have any idea?
You've you know he's a noble,
Yeah.
and from the fact that you don't recognize him specifically would tell you that he's not a very high up noble, because you again with your background, you know most of the big nobles, you know at least their name, and the ones that are close enough to the vampires that they have large amounts of land and stuff like that. You know of them at least. This person doesn't match any description of a noble you're familiar with, but he does definitely carry himself as one. So,
All right.
your guess is he's probably a lesser noble that thinks he's more important than he is.
Okay. Tell me, good sir, what's your name?
You are not worth the air it would take to tell you. Right now, my name is Owner. Right now, my name is Master. Right now, my name is Your Honor, Your Grace, Your Lordship. I am the person that is allowing you to be on my land, in my tavern, in my town, by nothing more than my grace. That grace is about to end.
Your Honor, we have no intentions of causing harm or doing anything of that sort. We merely came here to stop by for a drink.
Stop by somewhere else. I hear there's a lovely village about a day east of here. This is not a welcome place for you or any of their kind.
But it is night, and with such dangerous creatures from the nearest town being a day away.
Oh, I think there are far more dangerous creatures here than there are out there. And as he says that, I would like you to make a perception check.
Perception. Math. That's 14.
Okay. I'm rolling like I normally do. Out of the corner of your eye, you see some movement. Argenta and Valraven, since you guys are sitting kind of close to him but aren't standing right now, you guys have full view of this as one of the guys with kind of a billy club comes forward and starts swinging the billy club towards the commander's head, which, Vala, you're familiar with this swing. It generally aims for about the base of the skull, and if it connects, the commander's out. And when he wakes up, he's going to have an incredibly bad headache if he wakes up. So you guys see this happening. The commander, you see it out of the corner of your eye. You have a split second to react to this guy taking a swing at you. What do you want to do? And Argenta and Valraven, since you guys are close enough to him, you can react as well. Lillian, you're slightly further away, so you don't have the ability to interact until after this kind of this little action resolves itself. So, Commander, first you.
He's coming towards me.
He's swinging at you. By the time you see him, he's swinging the billy club at the base of your skull. And you're familiar with this blow too. It renders someone unconscious.
Yeah.
And it hurts like hell.
I'll just simply sidestep and not drawing anything, just sidestep out of the way of the reach of his club.
Okay, go ahead and make a dex save for me. Vala and Argenta, you watch as the commander starts to kind of move out of the direction of it. Do either of you two want to intervene?
I'm gonna
Um,
flip.
I-
I'm gonna flip the table in the direction of the Billy Club so that it
Okay.
connects with that.
And
That
I would
is
like to.
a-
All right, so
Go ahead.
commander first.
Dex save is a.
Math is hard.
Sorry, 20. Yeah, 20, not natural.
20 works great. You, without too much difficulty, you kind of spin on your heel. You can see the billy club coming directly for your face, and you just lean back slightly, and it whiffs right past. As soon as it does, you see Argenta place your hands and smack her hands on the bottom of the table and lift, and so you step backwards, again, very calmly, as the table comes flying and collides with the guy that just took a swing at you. Valeraven, what were you going to do?
I was going to use vicious mockery on him.
Okay, go ahead. What do you say to him?
That's an awfully small club you have there.
What's your
Before
save?
he, sorry.
It's a DC 15.
Okay, and
Courage.
what's the skill?
Or
Is it
wisdom.
whiz?
I don't know.
Wisdom saving throw.
Yeah, he fails. Go ahead and roll damage.
Before the table is flipped, I'm going to grab
That
the drink off the table as well.
So as you see the table about to be flipped, you just take your drink and step backwards very calmly. I'm assuming you turn back to the noble after the table is flipped with your
Yes.
drink in hand.
Uh-huh.
What was the damage, Val?
2.
2.
And
Okay.
he has disadvantage on his next attack.
So you watch the table come up, and you hear Argenta. You hear a very satisfying crunching sound, as you know his nose is broken by the table itself. And as he goes back, you watch Vala Raven kind of wave her hand and hurl this insult, and you feel that familiar feeling of magic kind of start to activate. And you watch him kind of trip over himself and just land on his back, kind of clutching his head and then his nose. And he's like, "Ew, fucking I kick up." And then he just kind of trips and falls again and, kind of sits on the floor bleeding all over himself. As that happens, the ones that were near the other patrons instantly start pulling weapons and pressing sharp objects against the necks of the various townspeople here. The noble seems infuriated. I mean, you can feel the waves of anger coming off of him. Lillian, you see the table flip and you watch Valeraven do it, and you're close enough that the table you were sitting at is no longer there. Is there anything that you want to do in the split second after Valeraven does that?
As the table flipped, I jumped out and draw back. Ready to fight anyone that attacked me.
Okay. Do you activate your right or no?
Not yet.
Okay. So you guys watch as Lillian very smoothly stands up, draws her sword, and kind of points it in the direction of the closest enemies that were kind of moving in towards her. And as soon as they saw the flash of silver, they instantly started stepping back and getting into more defensive postures. And you can see the noble sitting there just boiling with anger. It goes, "How dare you, you filth, you disgusting wastes of space." And he turns towards Abigail. "This is your doing, isn't it, harlot? I should have ended your life when I killed that disgusting waste of filth you called your husband."
So you're openly admitting to murder. Interesting.
And he turns back to you and he goes, "I have the right to remove anyone trespassing on my land through any means necessary. That includes ending their lives." I'm certain the vampires would love an additional blood tax. You
Sure the
don't seem to have paid yours recently. Perhaps I should collect that in their name as well.
in the name of the bloody fang.
You know,
Make
I
an insight check, Argenta.
Okay. So that insight 12.
Okay. He doesn't seem he doesn't seem to even look at you when you say that. Lilianne, you were going to say something?
I see about I see how it's committed that he's gonna be a better broadcast and he has a patience. I pay my president and invent my life.
Okay. So you guys watch as Lilianne, you watch as her thumb kind of traces along the blade a little bit, and because technically you have two. You have
I'll do my fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys watch as Lilianne kind of traces her thumb along the base of the blade, which normally on a longsword, the bottom like 6 inches or so are dull. They're not sharp at all because you have no swinging power. Hers are razor sharp down there, which seems kind of bizarre. But as you see her run her thumb along it, you see blood start to trail, and then the blood starts traveling against gravity and tracing itself over the blade, and then erupts in flame. And Lilianne kind of brings it around, and you see more of these guards, or these ruffians, start to back up a little bit, and they start looking a little bit more concerned.
You blood. Right here.
I like that. Take a point of inspiration for that. I like that.
I walk around the table because Lillian's kind of in front of everybody, right?
Kind of.
Okay.
You're kind of in the center of the room now. The table itself has been flipped to the other side of the room.
That's right.
So there's a couple chairs around you, but there's no table, and the noble is standing basically in the doorway. So you still have a good like 20 or 30 feet between you and him.
Okay.
And he just seems more and more angry, and he goes, "So, you want to make this difficult?"
I walk, kind of standing next to Lillian, more towards the other side, where the other side of the table would be.
Mm-hmm.
Still with my drink in hand. I raise it up in a kind of a cheers motion, drink it, and put it on the chair. And it's like, it seems an awful lot like this town would be happy to see you go. So my question is do you honestly think you would live through us and the entirety of this town
And
seeking to kick you out?
for the first time since he got there, you see just the tiniest betrayal of fear behind his eyes before the anger kind of takes over again. Are you telling me that you care so little about these people you claim you are here to protect that you would watch all these people die just to try
Well,
to attack me?
judging by the looks, because they all look like they've been able to handle themselves in a fight, or they just look like they're
They look
just
absolutely terrified. These are, again, the description you were given. The fighters in this town, the people that could handle themselves, are dead. He killed them.
yeah.
So
But I
the
mean,
people that are left, look terrified. They do not look like they're ready for a fight. You're relatively certain just from glancing around the room, if a fight were to break out, you think the people that are with you probably could take a large number of the ruffians in here, but the townspeople, a lot would die. They have no weapons on them. They don't seem to understand even the most basic ideas of tactics or defensive anything. So you're kind of in between a rock and a hard place, but you definitely saw fear when you said that.
So
What about the nobles guys? Are they? How did they look like? They've seen a lot of fights, or they look
yes. They definitely from the moment the guy took a swing precisely at the point that would have rendered you unconscious instantly, you could tell that these guys know what they're doing. They understand how to inflict a lot of damage. You're not sure. They don't look like an army or anything like that. You know, they don't look trained or anything, you know, along that lines. But they definitely know how to fight.
Okay.
So, Argenta's going to turn towards the ones that are like holding them hostage, and she's just like, "If you harm them," and the tattoo flares to a deep crimson, her pupils dilate, and I'm going to waste a rage.
Okay.
And I say, "If you harm them, you'll be the first on my list to hunt." And then she howls.
So you guys watch as Argenta starts to drool a little bit. Her pupils dilates. You see her muscles start to bulge. And again, this tattoo starts to glow a little bit, and the wolves on it start to howl as she howls. It's really bizarre because it almost looks like a trick of the light that her tattoo is moving almost, and you look at it again and it's not moving. So it's very, very bizarre, but definitely something interesting is happening with Argenta, and you can see the ruffians are very much not like they're actively moving away with their hostages from Argenta and giving her a very, very wide berth.
Are there windows in this building? How many windows in their locations are there?
The building itself is roughly about 50 feet back by about 30 feet wide,
Okay.
and about every 10 feet there's a window.
Okay. I turn to the preacher, and I very as subtly as I can say, "Feel like taking a walk?"
But the party's just getting started.
As you say that, the noble turns to you and goes, You can't touch me. My men would be on you faster than you could blink. There's nothing you can do. You couldn't even take that bow off your back before my men would be on top of you, and I would get away scot-free to come back with even more." And now he's starting to get a little bit more bold as he's, again, there's 20 feet between the two of you. So he's starting to kind of brag about the fact that you're too far away to cut him with anything, and taking a bow off your back and, you know, notching an arrow and everything takes a little bit of time. So he's starting to brag about that.
I I just kind of give a little bit of a chuckle, and then slowly just move the right side of my coat out and back and behind, and revealing Fury.
Okay, and as he sees that, it's no longer a hidden sense of fear. You see fear in his eyes. He's like, "That's fine. It doesn't matter what you do here today. This is my land. I own it. I have the paperwork, The vampires have confirmed it. I will be back. And you see him turn and storm out the door. And the rest of his men are just kind of standing there. They're looking at Argenta, realizing they're not nearly in the position that they thought they were. And they slowly start shuffling their way, keeping like people in between them and Argenta. And they slowly start kind of filing their way out. You see a couple of the people have like red marks and little bits of blood on their necks where like daggers had started to cut a little bit, but it doesn't look like anyone's seriously hurt. Other than Abigail, who again looks to have a busted lip and maybe, a bloody nose.
Once they're all out, I'm gonna help Abigail to her feet.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go over and cast Cure Wounds on her.
Okay. So you watch as her split lip just slowly kind of closes itself, and she wipes the blood away. And she turns to all. And says, "Thank you. And you can see she's trying to hold herself together, but she's failing. And she's starting to break down a little bit from being in an incredibly dangerous situation. And you see her, she keeps trying to, like, she's adjusting her hair, and she's like, I just,
As she's fumbling with her hair, I like grab her hands and hold her hands in front of her, and just start asking, "That's the noble, yes."
And as she looks at your hands kind of holding hers, she just kind of bursts into tears and kind of buries herself into your chest. And she goes, "Yes, he killed my Stephen. So many. And so many." And she kind of presses herself back. "And so many have they've turned a blind eye, and no one would help until you got here. Please, And you see her reaching for the bag she had shown you before, and the rest of you can hear a fairly large amount of jingling coming from the bag. And she's like, "It's all we have, but please, you can't. He killed my Stephen."
I just push it back down. I push it away and try and push it back to where she got it.
And she doesn't really fight. Like, at this point, she's near hysterics. And she's just sitting there. She's like, "He killed my Stephen. He can't. He can't get away with that."
I try and get her focused and ask her, are those all his fighters? Does he have any more?
"No, he has. I don't know. He's come with as many as 50 men at a time. He has more, maybe 100, 150. I don't know. He's just. He has money. He can hire as many as he wants."
Yeah. And Argenta's like, she's relaxed at this point, let the rage drain away, and she's just like, "They use explosives too. I've run into it before. You've heard my name, right?" I look at the commander.
Have I heard the name?
Yeah. Again,
Lone Wolf. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
Lone
right.
Wolf. Yeah. You're familiar with the Lone Wolf.
Okay.
Much more famous in Fenrish than in Sanguinus or Valakovia, but the name is known pretty far. Like probably a similar reach to your name, though yours is a little bit more well known. Just because you keep, like, over and over again, you keep inserting yourself into situations you probably shouldn't, and ending up in a good spot. So word of your name has traveled really, really far.
Okay. Question is how many does he have in this town right now? So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
They don't. Abigail turns to you, goes, They don't stay in the town. They go back up to his estate."
I turn to the preacher. Preacher, see if you can follow them, not be seen, and see where they're going.
Okay. I'm gonna go outside into the darkness. My old friend.
Cool. Roll me a stealth check.
Oh, I'm also gonna cast invisibility on myself too.
Roll me a stealth check with advantage.
Natural 20.
Yeah, you guys watch as Briar kind of looks, and for whatever reason, you just feel it feels natural to just kind of do what he tells you to do. No magic or anything like that. He's just a very confident person, and he gave you, like, the command he gave you is the exact command that you probably would have done anyways. It makes sense to you. So you guys watch. She waves her hand a little bit, and you watch the room itself get slightly darker, and shadows kind of gather around her, and then she's not there anymore. And then the door opens and closes without anyone going through it. And that is where we are going to end it for tonight. So, for anyone watching, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This, like I said, this is our brand new campaign. And I hope from the first episode, you guys are as excited about it as I am. I think there's going to be some really, really cool stuff going on. And I think already we have some very interesting character interactions that are starting. So, yes, like I said, if you want to watch live, I stream D&D games every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central Time. So please come out, and it's twitch.tv/TrainerJody. Come out, interact with us in chat, watch everything unfold live. Otherwise, I do upload these all to my YouTube channel. Again, youtube.com/TrainerJody. And again, I am fighting to keep my partnership status. So please, 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 if you're not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. Watch a few episodes. All of that helps me to be able to get that much closer to retaining my partnership status. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter. I'm at TrainerJody. And that is all for me today. I will see you guys next time. Okay? Bye-bye.